Before you do anything, you want to wash your hands with soap and water. Bottles of Coliscan Easy Gel should be removed from the freezer and set out in an environment that is at room temperature to allow the containers to thaw out to a liquid state. This will typically take about 2 to 3 hours. It is a good idea to set these out while you're out in the field sampling. For each site you test for E. coli, you will collect 1 environmental water sample and then perform 2 tests with that sample. Each test requires 1 Coliscan Easy Gel. Today, we will only be testing 1 site, so we will need to set out 2 Coliscan bottles. However, we will also set out a 3rd bottle for our field blank. During every 10th sampling event, or a minimum of once per month, citizen scientists need to prepare 1 additional Coliscan Easy Gel for a quality control field blank. Field blanks are used to assess potential contamination from sample handling, airborne materials, equipment, media, and other sources. Samples for E. coli testing are collected in sterile bacteriological bottles or WorldPack bags. Never pre-rinse the sample container. In this case, we are using a WorldPack bag. Tear off the top of the bag along the serrated edge and use the white tab to pull the WorldPack bag open to create a cylindrical form. If you are preparing a field blank, you will need to do this prior to collecting the environmental water sample at your site. This involves transferring the entire contents of the sterile diluent from the original bottle to the field blank sample container. You will treat this field blank sample exactly as you would the environmental water sample. When collecting the environmental water sample in flowing streams, dip the open sample container to a depth of 0.3 meters or roughly 1/3 the depth in very shallow streams. Avoid contact with the sediment. With the open end facing upstream, push the mouth of the bag upstream at this depth until full. Always hold the mouth in the environmental water sample container facing upstream of the sampler, sampling apparatus, or any disturbed sediment. Squeeze out the top 1 inch of water from the WorldPack bag and swirl the bag to seal. The sealed bag must retain at least 100 milliliters of sample water and a small pocket of air. This airspace will help mix the water when it is shaken just before making dilutions and membrane filtration. If your sample site is downstream of a wastewater treatment plant outfall, the effluent might contain chlorine disinfectant that could debilitate bacteria. At these sites, Texas Stream Team recommends that citizen scientists use the WorldPack Thio Bag. These bags contain 10 milligram tablets of sodium thiosulfate to neutralize free chlorine in the sample. Label each sample container with the station number, site name, date, and time collected. The field blank sample container will need to be marked with the previously mentioned information plus the words field blank. Place all samples, including the field blank, on ice immediately after collection. Bacteriological samples and the field blank must be transported, processed, and placed in incubation within 6 hours of sample collection. Do not report samples that are not processed within the holding time limit. For these next steps, you will need the thawed Coliscan Easy Gel, pre-treated petri dishes, a sterile pipette for each sample collected, including your field blank, an incubator, and gloves. Be sure the pipettes stay in the sterile wrapper until it is ready to be used. Put on gloves and set out 2 petri dishes for each sample you collected. In this case, we are setting out 2 petri dishes. But since we are conducting a field blank, we will also set out an additional petri dish for this quality control field blank. Label the top of each petri dish with the site name, date, volume of sample, and time the sample is poured into the petri dish. If you are processing a field blank, this petri dish should be labeled like the others and include the words field blank next to the site name. Shake the environmental water sample containers vigorously, and then carefully open without touching the lip of the bag. Unwrap the pipette from the bulb end and avoid contacting the tip from anything except the sample water. Submerge the bottom half of the pipette into the sample container and squeeze the bulb to expel the air. Draw the appropriate sample size of either 1 milliliter, 3 milliliters, or 5 milliliters into the pipette, and then release the bulb slowly into the Coliscan Easy Gel bottle and place the cap back on and swirl to mix. Each sample size drawn will go into a new Coliscan bottle. In this case, I am drawing a 3 milliliter sample size for one test and 5 milliliter sample size for the second. Record the sample sizes on the Texas Stream Team monitoring form. For the field blank, use a new pipette to draw 1 milliliter from the field blank WorldPack bag into a new Coliscan Easy Gel bottle. Place the cap back on and swirl to mix. Once mixed with Easy Gel media, the prepared samples and the field blank should be plated within 10 minutes. Pour one of the prepared samples slowly into the petri dish. Gently swirl until there is a smooth coating of prepared samples across the bottom of the petri dish. Be careful not to splash over the side or on the lid. Repeat this step for your other samples and for your field blank onto new petri dishes. Set the petri dishes on a level surface and allow 5 to 45 minutes for the media to gel. This will help ensure that the samples will be spread uniformly across the petri dishes and help prevent shifting or pooling of the media after being placed in the incubator. While the petri dishes gel up, this is a good time to turn on the incubator to ensure the appropriate temperature will be reached before loading petri dishes. Once the media has gelled, place petri dishes right side up in the incubator and maintain a steady incubation temperature of 33 degrees Celsius. Plus or minus 3 degrees from 33 degrees Celsius is allowed. At this temperature, colonies should not be counted for a minimum of 28 hours. For optimum results, count and record colonies at 28 hours of incubation. No count should be made after 31 hours. After you have incubated the samples, take off the top of the incubator and remove the incubated petri dishes. Record the incubation time and temperature on the Texas Stream Team monitoring form. Now we are ready to count the distinct dark blue and dark purple dots that are on the petri dishes, representing E. coli colonies. Dark purple and blue colored dots with a pink halo should also be counted as colonies. If E. coli growth occurs on the blank, discard all data collected on that day and document the results on the Texas Stream Team monitoring form. In order to get the final results, a series of calculations must be completed. First, you must determine the dilution factor for each petri dish. The dilution factor is calculated by dividing 100 milliliters by the sample size. Since we drew a sample size of 5 milliliters, your dilution factor is 100 milliliters divided by 5 milliliters equaling to 20 milliliters. To determine the number of colony-forming units per 100 milliliters, if we counted 100 colonies and had a dilution factor of 20 milliliters based on a 5 milliliter sample size, a final result is calculated by multiplying the dilution factor of 20 milliliters by the 100 colonies counted to equal 2,000 colony-forming units per 100 milliliters. For a 3 milliliter sample size, if we counted 62 colonies, we find the dilution factor by dividing 100 milliliters by our sample size of 3 milliliters, equaling out to 33.3 milliliters. We then determine the number of colony-forming units per 100 milliliters by multiplying our dilution factor of 33.3 milliliters by 62 colonies counted to come up with a total of 2,064.6 colony-forming units per 100 milliliters. Next, calculate the average E. coli from the previous calculations by dividing the sum of the variables by the number of variables. Our average E. coli comes out to 2,032 colony-forming units per 100 milliliters. This information should be entered in the Texas Stream Team monitoring form to document the final results analyzed. Verify the dilution factor is correct and mark accordingly on the Quality Data Review checklist. Now it is time to safely dispose of the used petri dishes. To eliminate possibly harmful pathogens present on the petri dishes, pour alcohol or Clorox bleach onto the petri dishes and place them into a Ziploc bag to dispose of properly.